That night, I saw a rusty straight razor hanging upside down, a blood streak thin as thread. Before that, the rancher burned down 2 barns himself to block Bannon Creel. The maid pulled her collar, hid the ringed burns. In this windland, the only thing worth trusting is the scar. Stay and see whose blood that was, and who hung the blade. The rusty razor lay on the window ledge, blade half closed. A strip of skin snagged on the steel edge like a dry tendon. Wind lashed through the dusty pane. Fine golden grains fell onto the wood edge, leaving a slanted line. Below was a tin cup, rim dented at the spot, lips always pressed. The smell of old coffee, the smell of iron. Jonas Reddick sat leaning in a wooden chair, back not touching fully. He rolled an unlit cigarette between 2 fingers. The paper gave a dry crack when bent. Gray eyes narrowed as if measuring the distance from ledge to table, from table to the half-open door. An old slash on his left cheek faded in the shadow, long past red. He set his forefinger on the cup rim, traced 1 circle, silent. The back door creaked. Tilda Mare stepped in, both arms holding a bucket of water. Her eyes kept down to the floor, heels touched without sound. Faded gray dress, hem threads loose, hands dry from cheap soap. She set the bucket by the stove. Water clanged against tin like a small bell. Jonas lifted the pot, did not look at her. He poured, coffee ran like a thin black thread. Bitter scent drifted out, touched the iron smell at the ledge. He pushed the warm cup toward the table's edge. No invite. Tilda bent for a cloth. The motion stretched her back. Cloth stuck to skin a beat, then peeled. Under thin fabric showed ringed burns, lined, pink at the edges, some black. She froze half a beat, left hand pulled her collar up. Too late. Jonas had seen. He said nothing, only shifted his finger from cup to the razor's handle on the ledge. Pressed light, the blade shut tighter, snapped with a click like a nail flicking an empty can. Wind dragged dust across the steel. Yellow powder marked a new streak. Tilda turned to the stove. She opened the wooden cupboard, took a spoon. Her hand trembled once, then stilled. She stirred the bucket water with the spoon like a task not needed. Water spun a small whirl, then stopped. Her eyes slid to the bottom crack of the door, where wind slipped in. Jonas heard her shoes tap the floor, short, steady, deliberate. He rose higher, her hand kept at knuckles raised. Jonas stepped onto the porch. Wind carried dry hay smell, faint horse dung. Wire fence hummed a long note. Tone stretched like a string. A crow perched on an old post. Beak tapped twice on wood, then flew. He watched, then turned back inside. His eyes never met hers. She pulled a stool by the stove, set a basket of potatoes, washed each. Water streamed, mud slid off skins. The burns on her back sealed under fabric, but the lines stayed in the eyes of one who had seen. Jonas sat again. He cupped the mug in his palm. Warmth spread through skin. The cold rim touched the callus of his thumb. He turned the cup once, traced the edge. "Where's the cloth hung?" he asked. Tilda pointed to the top shelf. A pause. The shelf high. She rose, dragged the stool, pressed it to the wall. Shoes tapped wood faintly. She climbed. Fingertips brushed the cloth edge. Shirt stretched again. The ringed burns showed clearer, each round, even, cold. Jonas did not move. He set the cup down, hand flat on the table, opened, closed. She caught the cloth, pulled it down. When her feet left the stool, it creaked once. She stood steady, exhaled. Shirt fell back, collar higher again. She never turned her back toward him after. Jonas reached for the ledge. This time he held the razor. Blade shut, steel dim. He scraped dry wax from a candle with the blunt spine. Flakes fell to the table. Small friction sound. A thin strip of brown skin caught on the edge. He picked it free with a nail, laid it on the table. His hand bore a white scar line across where blade had cut before, healed now. "How long you been here?" he said, eyes still on the strip of skin. "Last night," Tilda answered, low voice, steady, "from the fork road." "With who?" "No one." The reply dropped to the floor, did not break. Jonas nodded once, small, as if to himself. He set the razor back into its dust groove on the ledge. Blade faced inward, closed with no sound. She spread the cloth on the table, brushed wax flakes with the side of her hand. Did not touch the strip of skin. The strip stayed in the middle, like a drawn line. She tilted her head, listened outside. Wind shifted, the fence tone changed. She looked at the door, turned back to the basket. Jonas drank a sip. The back door creaked again as he pulled. The heavy wooden latch, iron bar rasped, slid into place. He tried once. It held. He did not look back. "What else do you need?" Tilda asked, eyes still on the basket. "Take water to the stable," he said. "Horse is thirsty." She nodded. She pulled the bucket. Iron handle bit her hand. White mark turned red. Jonas saw that wrist through half a glance. She carried the bucket out, body tilted toward the side without pain. Her shadow flattened across the floor, then vanished at the threshold. Jonas returned to the chair. He sat. The kitchen held the small crack of damp wood in the stove, faint fire snapping. Wind still passed through the pane. The dust streak on the ledge had thinned where the razor rested. He touched the old slash on his cheek. Nail traced the scar's edge, then stopped. He looked to the porch. The second coat hung on a nail, sleeves hollow. The heavy bucket sounded across the yard. The old dog under the porch exhaled, did not bark. Tack jingled in the stall. The horse shifted feet. Jonas set his hand on the table. Fingers opened, then closed, as if holding what was not there. He did not touch the razor again. Tilda came back in. Her sleeve caught bits of straw, clung at the elbow. She brushed once, straw fell. One strand stuck to her hem. She did not look at him, stepped to the stove, fed the fire with 2 thin sticks, blew a short breath. Flame rose, then steadied. She tugged her collar low as if for air, but only half an inch. Steam from the old bucket rose thin as smoke. Jonas held the cigarette, pressed its end on the table edge, pinched the leaf tighter. The matches lay there in a small wooden box, lid scratched. He did not strike. He set the cigarette back in place, as if untouched. He turned the cup a small angle, hand slid from rim. "How long you stayin'?" he asked. "As long as you let," she answered, still looked at the stove. Jonas nodded. He drew a spoon, set it by the basket, handle toward her. It caught a stray gleam. He drew out a spool of thread, tossed it light on the table. The spool rolled twice, stopped near the strip of skin. She glanced, did not reach. Silence. Outside, wind shifted. Wire fence hummed longer, as if pulled. Fine dust streaked through the pane, cut slant. The crow came back, perched on another post, silent. Floor quivered faintly as something heavy was set somewhere. Both heard, neither looked up. Each held their share of silence. On the shelf there's a stone bowl, Jonas said, eyes still on the ledge. Wood. Jonas pulled the bowl to him. Turned it, saw the cracked rim. The bowl had a small triangular chip at the lip, sharp. He pressed his thumb to it, tested depth, released. He looked at Tilda. Tilda looked at her own hands, fingers rubbing the salt, stuck still. No one asked. Outside, light shifted tone, less harsh. At the foot of the ledge, grains of sand had gathered, small. The razor still shut. The strip of skin lay near the spool. Salt dust clung. Jonas flicked an ash of thought off his tongue's edge, spoke none. In the stove, a damp log split, dropped sparks, low. She took a cloth, wrung it, hung it on a chair. Cloth dripped. 3 drops, stopped. 2 drops, stopped. Each drop clear, because no other sound cut. She touched one spot at her collar, then lowered her hand. Her back held straight, as if used to holding straight, so not to touch. Jonas stood, stepped to the back door, opened a slit, looked at the field. Earth cracked in lines, long as knife cuts. No one on the road. He shut it. Iron bars slid into groove. The rasp sound familiar. He turned back, pulled the chair, sat. The table before him held the strip of skin, the salt, the spool, the chipped bowl. The ledge held the razor, the dust, the mark of his hand just left. "Water the backfield this evening," he said. "Yes," she answered. He lifted the pot, poured the rest of the coffee into the cup. Less black, less warm. He raised it, did not drink. Only pressed the rim once more, to the callus of his thumb, then set it down. Next to the cup lay the razor's shadow, sharp-edged, broken where white salt scattered. The room itself seemed to hold breath at that spot. A silent line stretched from burns onto cloth to the half-shut steel on the ledge. No one cut it. No one tied it back. It lay there, taut enough not to break, taut enough to ache. Outside, sun slid across the porch, crawled onto the table's foot like ink. The crow flew away. The fence wire no longer hummed. Wind turned again. New dust clung on the steel, veiling the old trace. Jonas tilted his head, as if hearing what only he heard. Tilda set her hand on the chair's edge, fingers spread, closed again. Collar stayed up. No one opened it. No one asked why. The rusty razor still lay there, harmless. Groove with his forefinger, felt rough, let go. No need for more marks. Tilda Mari carried an empty bucket past the stable door. Her shadow spread on dust floor. She did not walk down the center. Always chose the edge of shade, slid as if avoiding eyes placed in the light. Her left shoulder higher, pulled by habit of covering her back. Passing the door, her collar shifted, stopped just enough to show nothing. She did not look at Jonas. She looked at the space her hand could slip through, where air was less hot. "Pour it in the trough, half full," Jonas said, eyes still on the knot. His voice blunt, not hoarse, like a dull knife tapped on wood. Tilda nodded. Handle struck her wrist bone, cut a deep white line. She vanished at yard's corner, shoes crunching gravel, uneven, neither fast nor slow. Jonas tested the rope. Knot held. He set his hand on the horse's nape, slid from mane down spine. The animal breathed long. Hot air washed the back of his hand. Jonas withdrew, looked through the stall's gap to the yard. Wire fence carved the sky into skewed rectangles. At the house porch the window-ledge shadow lay slanted, where the rusty razor had rested since morning. He did not turn to it. Not now. Ezra Boone stood by the far fence, hands in pockets, brim cut half his face. He looked like a beam propped up. Only his thumb moved, rubbing the mouth of a small cloth pouch at his hip. Charcoal dust pouch. His fingers blackened, nails scratched. Ezra did not step into the yard, only tilted his head at the stable. His eyes skipped Jonas, slid past like one measuring wind, not men. "What do you need?" Jonas asked, not moving closer. Ezra shrugged slight. "Bannon wants to know if your old saddle's still for sale." His voice soft, like wet leather, nothing to hold. "Bring money, then talk," Jonas said. He drew his shoulders, half his body hid in stable shadow. Ezra nodded. He stepped back. Shoes touched gravel without sound. Turning away, he shook the pouch. Charcoal dust streaked thin. Wind dragged it like smoke. The black line stuck on the wooden latch of the stable door. He did not look back. Left. Tilda returned with a bucket half filled. Her arm trembled once, then stilled. She set it under the spout, pulled the lever. Water streamed silver, struck bucket, splashed drops on her hand. She did not withdraw. Drops stretched like glass threads, then fell. She dipped a ladle, placed it inside the stall by the horse's hoof. Jonas shifted for her to pass. Her shirt brushed his dusted coat, left a faint smear. No one apologized. "Wind turns this evening," Jonas said, as to the dust inside. Tilda gave no answer. She looked at the ground where someone's charcoal mark lay, a thin black circle. She lowered her head a bit more, walking out. Her shadow broke into as on a sleeper. Her eyes skimmed sharp, like a needle glancing a vein. "Returning the cloth you ordered," she said, but her eyes were not on Jonas. Her eyes were on Tilda, on the collar pulled high, on the way she bent for a loose string without turning her back full to anyone. "How much?" Jonas asked. Sylvie smiled a smile that went nowhere. "You'll pay later." Her finger touched the bundle's corner, pulled the tie straight, motioned flat as a mother unknotting a child's hair. Her fingers smelled of lye soap mixed with old sweat. "Tonight, bolt the door well," she said blunt and turned. Her skirt brushed the porch, rasped. Everything held still until sun drained off the fence. The old dog under porch shifted, huffed a long breath. The sparrows left the eaves all at once, as if pinched at the root of their hearts. Tilda lit the fire in the stove. Thin sticks scraped to wake red embers. Damp wood moaned, thin smoke slipped through cracks. Jonas sat at the table, tin cup before him, dent placed in its old spot. He did not drink. His eyes stayed on the window ledge inside, where the rusty razor had lain shut in the morning. That place now empty, plain as if nothing had ever been. He did not ask, did not call. He only slid the cup back an inch, scraped dry salt with his nail into a white line. Tilda set the oil lamp on the stove's corner, wiped its glass with her hem. Glass cleared, fire low inside, enough for spoon to wring the pot's rim. Then night fell. Hooves came before shadow touched the gate. 1, 2, 3, 4 beats mixed, then stopped in 3 hard breaths. No one spoke. Only the snap of reins, hoarse breathing ragged. Tilda raised her eyes from the stove, looked at Jonas. Jonas did not rise. He set his hand on the table, middle finger touched the salt line, dragged it long, white. He stood, slow. The door opened. Wind swept, oil lamp swayed. 3 riders stood in thin mist, brims low, coats whipped back by wind. The one in the middle wore a silver ring on his left hand, surface cut with a B. The edge pressed his skin, leaving a pale red band. Lamplight caught the letter, flashed, went dark. No hand on reins. They stood as if on their own porch. "Mr. Reddick," the ringed one said, voice smooth, but a pebble on the tongue. No name given, none needed. Jonas stood in the doorway. He did not step out, did not stay in. Half body in house shadow, half in night shadow. His hand left the table, fell to his side, closed. The lamp behind him cast a yellow streak on his left knee, carved JR, blurred by dust and sweat. On its edge clung a thin strip of brown skin, tangled in dry salt left from morning when someone wiped the table careless. It lay exactly where the door would sweep if no one paid mind. Instead of leaving it, the rider on the right touched it with his boot tip, nudged it an inch, as if fixing it into the story's center. "You forgot this," he said, eyes locked on Jonas. His voice clean as one who had just swallowed cold water. To his left, the man with the silver ring tapped it on the porch post. Once, twice, thrice. The metal-to-wood sound drove into the chest and stayed there. Tilda appeared a half-step behind Jonas, her hand smudged faint with charcoal. No one knew from where. Her wrist still bore the white groove from the bucket handle, now darkened. She looked at the thing on the porch, then at Jonas. Her eyes widened beyond normal, but no water. Her left hand clutched her skirt into a knot. The knot shook as if tied to her heart. Jonas did not move. His face did not change, only the old slash on his cheek seemed deeper when the lamp bent to another angle. He looked down at the razor. Close enough to read the carving. Close enough to see the fresh dust caught on steel, not the same as morning's dust. Close enough to know it had lain elsewhere before here. But he did not stoop. The man with the ring smiled one-sided, teeth hidden. "Your house these days, clean," he said, eyes slid past the stove, the maid, the wall's shadow. The ring tapped a 4th beat, then stopped as if remembering what need not be said. Ezra Boone was the 3rd rider. He pulled reins slight. The horse hissed through its nose. Lamplight touched the pouch at his hip, mouth specked with charcoal. Ezra looked once at the porch, once at the razor. His eyes brushed Tilda, then swerved away. He swallowed. His throat bobbed up and down like a man searching for a voice. No one invited them in. No one sent them off. Wind pushed through the porch. Lamps swung. Everyone's shadow rippled like fish in shallow water. An insect struck the lamp glass, dropped to the wick edge, burned in a thin green spark. Burnt insect smell flared, sharp. "Bannon sends word," the man with the ring said, no name. "Tonight needs no talk." He raised his hand for the lamp to catch the ring's face, full letter B. Jonas did not look at the ring. He looked at the space between the ring and the shadow falling from his wrist on porch wood. That space darkest looked past the three, out the gate where the fence's shadow lay black as a long writing on the night ground. Then he dropped his eyes to the step, as if reading a name carved there years before. His hand did not move. Insects outside burst in one sweep, a thin droning, steady. That sound like a damp cloth wrapped around the neck, not tight, yet hard to breathe. The lamp stopped swinging. Wind cut like someone had flipped a switch. All stood in that silence, each hearing his own heart. No one lifted the razor. Jonas did not step. Tilda did not reach. The three did not smile again. The echo of the ring tapping on posts still clung in the porch beams, not gone. And in that silence swallowing words, the question rose without a mouth. When did the razor leave the ledge? Who carried it out here? No one answered. Only insects swelling, then holding, as if pinning them between belief and doubt. Morning entered the kitchen like smoke wiped from eyes. Light fell through the pane in one straight streak. The rusty razor still lay on the porch edge, same spot it had dropped last night. Jonas Reddick nudged the door with his boot toe so it closed without sweeping the blade. He stooped, lifted it by 2 fingers. Yellow dust clung to sweat-stained steel. Blade half shut. He set it back on the ledge as before, turned the handle so JR faced the wall. Coffee bubbled in the black pot. Bitter scent struck against iron. Tilda Mare sat in a chair, arms drawn in, left shoulder raised. She kept herself in a patch of shadow, away from the light pouring through the window. The cloth lay folded in 4, edge straight on the table. Jonas's tin cup sat there, dented rims staring up like a lazy eye. Jonas poured. Coffee spilled a thin black line, struck the cup, rang once. He pushed it toward the table's edge. No invite. His eyes stayed on the ledge. The razor lay still like a dead thing refusing to go. Answer me, he said, low. Who left that mark on your back? Tilda set a finger on the cloth, smoothed the crease not there. She raised her head a fraction, kept the light from her neck. Her lips opened. Words fell small as a pebble dropped in a well. Bannon Creel. The room emptied of sound. Only damp wood snapped in the stove. Jonas set the cup down.
With him a season, Jonas said, eyes on the objects. Shared herd, shared rain. He cut trail short, sold cattle twice. I left. He stopped, did not excuse himself, did not excuse anyone. A silence stretched, tight as wire fence when wind builds before a lash. Tilda set her hand on the table's edge, her fingers stiff as wood. She looked at the bag, the casings, the knotted rope. What will you do? The words did not shake. Jonas closed the bag. Choose. He turned once, opened the higher cupboard, brought down an old oil can, dented lid. Wax still clung at the rim. He set it on the floor, tilted. Oil rolled, left a dark smear. He pulled another lamp, glass streaked with fingerprints. He wiped once with his hem, no cleaner. Why oil? Tilda asked, eyes on the can. Jonas did not answer. He fastened his coat, one button torn loose, hanging. He stepped to the stable. His boots struck dry ground, sand sprayed from heels. He opened the small hay shed by the fence. Smell of old straw rose like melted sun. He tested the wind with a wet fingertip raised. Wind blew from the saloon side, sour sweet with spilled liquor. He nodded as if hearing an answer. Tilda followed half a span behind. She cradled the oil can like a tired child. Her hand smeared with oil, gleamed. Jonas cut a path of hay from shed wall to the clearing between two outbuildings, tool shed and spare barn. The line lay like a long scar. He poured. Oil soaked, spread, grass darkened. A fly landed, stuck, struggled, quit. "You're burning the house?" Tilda said low, as if not to hear her own voice. "No," Jonas answered flat. "Burning the road." He pointed to the gate. "They cut through here. Wind's right, fire will push them wide. We hold the door." He handed her an old double-barrel shotgun, heavy. "Know how?" She caught it in both hands, barrels dipped then steadied. "Yes." "3 shells in the coat pocket," Jonas said. He tapped his left breast pocket, the only one still firm. "Shoot ground before hooves. Don't aim at men. Enough to turn a horse." She nodded. They worked in silence. Jonas spread more straw, drew another line across his own land. Tilda laid rag strips soaked with oil along the path. Their handprints marked the grass, dark, slick, flat. Sun pressed on their backs, hot as unseen breath close behind. From far, hooves beat together. Not fast, confident. Jonas raised his head, looked past fence through red dust. 3 horse shadows turned to 4 as one joined from the left, vanishing, appearing like a swimmer in water. Bannon Creel was the center.
Yule's neck. Flame crawled the line like a lazy, warm snake. Steady. Oiled grass took, swelled, popped. Tilda watched, her face unchanged. She leveled a shotgun at her hip, feet braced. She did not step back. Jonas walked the path, lit at 2 bends. Flame joined flame, curved across the yard, tool shed at the left like a dry lung beside a smoker. Wind edged the fire kindly into the open ground they'd planned. Bannon saw. He pulled reins, horse reared half, landed. He tapped the ring on saddle horn. 3 beats. The rider on his right was Ezra Boone. Ezra lowered his head, stared between the horse's ears, eyes shut once, opened. He shifted his horse aside, wanting to veer. Jonas spoke no word. He lifted the second lamp, lit, hurled into straw by the shed. Fire kissed dry wood. Wood did not crack, yet only darkened like a man, struck in the face, but silent. A moment later, fire's breath thickened. The shed wheezed like a smoker, then coughed its first flame. Old roof caught orange at the corner. Fire climbed, searched air, searched wind. "You're mad," Tilda said flat. Not fear, not curse, just description. Jonas glanced at her. "Hold the door." He stepped forward, stood between fire and gate, between house and men. Bannon lowered his hand. He tried to bend round the right, but fire clung to earth like red steel. Wind pressed it at the horse's face. The beast inhaled oil stink, turned, eyes white. Ezra pulled his horse back. The rider left of Bannon drew his gun, fired once at the air like at his own anger. Tilda raised the barrels, pulled trigger. First shot hit dirt before the man's horse. Red dust spat his knees. Horse leapt aside, threw him, gun fell. Iron split the ground with echo. None picked it up. The hay barn popped like a burst lung. Fire hunted gaps in cut straw, broke out where sides had missed clean. Tin roof cracked, flame licked a bridle hanging spare, leather shrank, strap snapped like skin boiled. Jonas tightened his hat strap, eyes fixed on fire, like a man guarding a freed beast. He stepped back, set the third lamp at the spare barn's edge. "Go," he told the fire, and the fire obeyed. Bannon smelled the cost. He turned his horse, swung wide, the ringed hand raised to shield from heat. He looked once into the yard, longer than needed, as if reading a story with no words. He did not curse, did not call. He pressed heel, horse spun in dust like a screw, bolted. Someone eating slow but greedy, biting sure with each mouthful. The hay barn's roof collapsed a corner with a crack. The spare saddle post split. Winter's tools, rakes, harrows, harness straps, showed a second, then were gone. Ash rose high like a flock of black birds with no place to fly. Wind shifted, licked flame onto the edge of the second outbuilding. Jonas dipped his hand, flung water, the hiss like a snake stepped on. Not enough. "Get inside," he said. "Bolt the door. Press the horse's chest." Tilda did not ask why. She backed, palm on wood, her back avoiding firelight. She slid the iron bar. The rasp in the groove sounded like cold teeth. When smoke rose thinner above the saloon in the distance, Jonas saw the sky split, orange over his land, gray over the town. He stood between colors, hat brim shadowing his eyes. He drew in. Smoke entered like swallowing something bitter, with no choice. He stepped back to the porch, laid his hand on the window ledge. The rusty razor still there, blade shut, fresh dust clung. He turned the handle straight. That edge could slip skin if someone careless. He lifted his hand away, did not touch. Fire ate the easy part, slowed at the hard. It growled small, like a man out of breath, still trying one more word. The tool shed collapsed, ended in the sigh of old timber. The spare barn stood hollow, like a jaw with no flesh. Burnt hair still on the horse's mane. Jonas combed with an old iron comb, teeth hot, his hand red. He did not stop. When silence came, it came like a door opened without knock. Only ash falling from beams, water dripping in the trough, wire fence cooling. Tilda opened the door, stepped out. Smoke smeared her forehead dark. She looked at the ash yard, at the space carved open, wide as the gap between two who cannot say the right words. "You lost 2 barns," she said. "Yeah." Jonas answered. In the yard, warped metal lay with ash. A horseshoe ring glowed red as if just lit. Near it, a saddle hook bent like a broken finger. The house wall wore a thin black film. A hand pressed there would leave mark. Tilda raised her hand, stopped halfway, did not touch. Jonas went inside. He pulled the chair, sat, pushed the tin cup back to its place. He pressed a finger to the dented rim, held longer than usual. Outside, wind passed through a cost not returned. Ash sank in grass like salt in wet flesh. The fence at the far field sagged from heat. Wires slacked like strings over-tightened. Wind blew across the new bare ground, carried charred wood, burnt hide, old oil. Jonas Reddick shoveled ash with a split-handled spade, face unchanged. Hat brim dusted his ear. The old dog lay under the porch, wheezing, eyes half open like one unwilling to sleep. Tilda Mare carried a bucket. Water splashed with each step. Her wrist still banded red from iron handle, deeper than yesterday. She flung water on thick soot by the wall. It turned to steam, hissed like a snake. She bent just enough not to pull the back of her shirt tight. Each time she rose, her eyes passed Jonas, moved on, found no place to land. They worked without words. Spade hit earth, water met ash. Wind slid through. Fence wire shivered once, then stilled. In the stall, the horse, saved from flame, blew through nostrils, sound of a bellows. Jonas stroked its mane. Calloused finger flicked a charred hair loose. The black curl shriveled like a dead beetle. By noon, townsfolk came, scattered. They stood outside the fence, did not enter, hats low, mouths muttering. He burned it himself, one voice. To scare, another. To cover, a third. All like wind, snagged in wire and stuck there. Jonas did not lift his head. He shoveled 2 more loads, spread them flat. The old dog rolled to its other side, sighed long, ears twitching at whispers. Sylvie Knorr came last, arms holding a bundle, wrapped in wax paper. She laid it on the porch, like a small debt set down. Her eyes moved quick, over ash, broken posts, blackened wall. Stopped at Tilda. "You have bandages," she said, voice like a needle pressing. Not a question. Tilda nodded, slight, her eyes no farther than Sylvie's arms. Sylvie opened the cloth, inside a roll of clean white linen. She offered. Tilda did not take. Jonas reached, placed it on the kitchen shelf. No thanks. Last night, someone stood at the road's end, Sylvie added, like telling weather. A while, did not come. Jonas gave no reply. She looked at the window ledge over his shoulder, where the rusty razor still lay. She said no more. Left. Her skirt brushed the porch, left a new dust line. Thin shadow cut across the old salt stain on the table. Tilda cleared bowls. A cloth slipped one corner. She picked it up. Her fingers paused halfway, as if she had touched what should not be. They locked the back door. Iron bar slid the groove. Short rasp. Jonas tested. Firm. The front door barred with a wood beam. Slot tight. The old dog shifted deeper under the porch, breathed, steady. The oil lamp lowered its wick. The kitchen stilled. Night stretched. Small sounds loud. Fence wire outside tapped loose. An insect struck lamp glass, dropped to wick, flared a thin green spark. Someone turned in the old bed frame. Water in the bucket tilted faint. Stilled. In the night's deepest cut, another sound, a faint rub of the wood bar, touched as if by finger testing. Not enough to open, just enough for one awake in silence to know someone stood outside. Jonas opened eyes in dark. He did not rise. He counted wind beats. He waited for a second sound. None came. Silence. Morning lit the kitchen before the people. Thin yellow entered through the pane. Wind pushed new dust onto the ledge. The razor was gone. Fresh dust sliced by a hollow groove shaped like the blade, its outline sharp. Jonas stood in the doorway, his eyes holding the empty form. He called no name. He walked to the table. It lay there in the middle among old salt and dry wax, blade still shut, but its edge bore a filament of blood, fine as hair, drawn from tip into a faint streak, ending at the chipped edge of wood. On the steel lay a black speck, charcoal or ash, hard to say, pressed into the blood, darkening it at one point. The handle's edge bore a new shine from someone's touch, unlike the old sweat polish of Jonas, cleaner, lighter. Tilda stood a span away, ladle in hand, not stirred. Her eyes touched the razor, then fixed on the space beside it, as if choosing to look at nothing. Her collar pulled up a notch, just enough to hide a ringed scar that had slipped out last night. Her fingers gripped the ladle, joints white. She did not ask why it was there. She did not move. Jonas looked at the blood thread. He bent closer, his heart steady, but his eyes narrowed as if under harsh sun. He set his fingertip on the table, near the steel, did not touch blood. The tip dragged through salt, left another white line. No one spoke. No fly passed. The old dog sneezed once outside, stilled. "Last night," Jonas said, voice like a worn blade spine, "you left the bed." Not a question. Tilda did not know. Bore that dust on her hand at the porch. Both true. Both beside the razor. Jonas did not join them. He left them there, each truth, round as a stone, not touching. The outer door clicked soft. Wind carried town smell, pies baking, sweat of men, Sylvie's sewing needle somewhere. Two by the fence paused to look in, walked on like passing a grave without name. Jonas sat. His hand slid under table, found the gun stock. Wood smooth as a colt's neck, familiar. He held it, let go, did not draw. Tilda lifted the pot from stove. Steam rose white. She did not pour. She raked coals inward with a stick, silent. A spark jumped, burned her hand, left a red dot on the knuckle. She did not pull back. She dropped the stick, laid a cloth on the burn. The cloth took damp, left a small dark circle like a seal. Jonas watched the circle longer than needed. Ring, mark, scar. The things pressed into her back, the things pressed into his land, the razor on the table. Blood, thin as thread, stretched on its edge. He drew the tin cup close. Dented rim met his thumb's callus. He did not drink. He set it down, heard metal tap wood like a last nail in a box. Outside, fence wire shrieked under wind. At market, someone laughed. The sound broke in the middle. Sylvie crossed the porch, did not step in. She looked through the pane at the table. She set a small bundle on the step. Inside, 2 spools of thread and a new needle. "For mending," she said, her eyes on the razor. "They ask if you burned for her." Words dropped like a stone in shallow water. Jonas did not pick it up. Tilda slipped into kitchen shadow, hand pressed cloth to fresh burn, eyes on floor. When Sylvie left, Ezra stood far at the fence, half body in sun. He did not call. He rubbed his fingertip in his palm, again, like counting. He looked once to the porch. His eyes passed the razor, stopped at blood, left. He turned. Dust flared behind his heels. The turn did not come with a loud sound. It came with 2 people sitting across a half-shut blade, no longer knowing whose hand had used it. Last night they stood together before fire, held the gate. This morning they sat across a table, held silence. Gain turned to loss in the span between steel and eyes that did not meet. Tilda fed more wood. Fire rose like a breath drawn. She opened her mouth, wanted words, closed it. She lifted the ladle, stirred the pot. Metal against iron rang hollow. Jonas laid his hand once more on the gunstock, then left. Across the ash yard dragged a late streak of smoke. Somewhere in town, a hammer struck an anvil. The sound jumped out like a curt answer. Inside, on the ledge, the steel lay still, blood dried dark into a thin line like thread. No one knew whose blood. No one spoke. And that silence thickened like soot in lungs. Every breath recalled something, clinging, not letting go. Night dropped like a tin lid. The house kept its breath underneath. Wind scraped the roof's edge, thin whistle like a needle testing skin. The old dog turned in the porch corner, wheezed, did not bark. Door bar set, groove polished by human touch. Lamp wick lowered, brown light fixed. Jonas Reddick opened his eyes at a very small sound, wood on metal, as if something placed on a nail. He sat up, did not light more. His eyes knew dark. Bare feet touched the cool floor. Ash dust stuck gray dots on his soles. He walked through the kitchen, past stale coffee smell, past the dented tin cup sitting in its old scratch. In the doorframe, a nail long empty, no longer empty now. The rusty razor hung there upside down, blade pointing down, handle to wall. Blade half shut. The blood thread from morning dried, pulled into a dark line, stopping at the chipped wood edge, shaped half-moon. Below the blade, a flat brown drop clung like a dried fish-eye. Around the nail's head, a faint black smudge, dull like charcoal rubbed by fingertip, not thick, but enough to differ from the yellow dust on the ledge. Jonas stood close enough to read the faint J.R. carved on the handle, close enough to hear the fence wire hum one long note as the wind turned. He did not touch, only set his finger on the door frame's rim, where wood felt cooler from another hand's touch before. He looked down. Dust showed a narrow trail swept from window ledge to back door, breaking at the table's foot. Dark, like someone with charcoal brushed by a sleeve. Tilda once had that dust on her hand. Ezra, too. Truths lay apart, like two stones. In the other room, the wooden bed creaked. Someone turned. No door opened, no footstep. Only the house's heart beat long, even, heard through the fence wire. Jonas looked at the razor one more beat, then turned. He pulled the kitchen chair close to the table so passing feet would not strike the blade. He did not touch the razor hanging upside down, blade black. No raise of brow, no change of breath. She walked under it, held the bucket low so its rim would not scrape the edge. In the kitchen she set it down, water struck tin round. She turned, lifted her collar a notch. The ringed burns unseen, but there, like words under tracing paper. Jonas followed, carrying the split-handled spade and a straightened hook. He fixed the hook on a new post, hung a bridle still whole. His eyes went up to the razor, paused a beat. He did not say who. He did not say why. He stepped to the porch, shoveled ash onto the path to cut mud, each stroke slow, exact, like writing with the spade's tip. Townsfolk came and went like shadows along the fence. They stood, hats pulled low, eyes fixed on the doorway, where the steel hung upside down. No one pointed, no one spoke loud. Rumor traveled fast, light, clung to hair like oil smoke. Jonas burned his barns himself, the maid carried ill luck. Bannon laughed at the saloon. Children passed, the older pulled the younger aside from the path. Reflex taught by stories that needed no telling. Sylvie Knorr came mid-morning, empty hands. She stood outside the porch. Her eyes swept once, touched the razor on the nail. From her pocket she drew a short red thread, placed it on the step like a footnote, then pulled her hand away. "The needle I gave cuts well," she said flat. Jonas nodded once, asked nothing. Tilda stood in the kitchen, clutched a cloth's edge, folded, unfolded. Her eyes followed the red thread one beat, then looked aside. Sylvie left. Her skirt rasped wood dry. She muttered to Wind, "Hang it upside down so the blood drains." Not meant for anyone. By noon, Ezra Boone stood at the fence like a shadow wanting reason. His hand dipped in pocket, out again, thumb rubbed forefinger to pass charcoal dust from one hand to the other. Wind lifted a thin black streak, broke it in air. His eyes jumped from horse to kitchen, from kitchen to steel. When Jonas stepped out, Ezra looked at his face one beat, then dropped to ground. He nodded, silent, turned toward the saloon. His heel struck a stone, clink enough for the old dog to open its eyes. Afternoon slanted. Fence shadows stretched long as lines no one read. Tilda hung wet clothes, pinned by wooden pegs crossed. White bandage on her wrist soaked. The black charcoal mark faded, returned as it dried. She did not lift her eyes to the razor. But each time she passed the doorway, her body tilted a hair to the side, instinct of one who avoids the edge under her own roof. Jonas fixed the front door bar, drove a new nail in the worn groove. He pushed, pulled, tested. Bar held. When he come. In the kitchen, thin soup smell, burnt wood smell, laundry smell. Tilda set the bowl before Jonas. Earthen bowl chipped in a triangle. Edge touched the table with a dry sound. Jonas did not eat it once. He turned the bowl so the chip faced out, showed sharp. Tilda sat opposite, not facing. She looked at her own hand, the red skin at the wrist under bandage. She pressed her thumb on it, held for one beat, then released. No sentence needed voice. Night came as if someone snuffed the lamp outdoors. Inside, one brown-yellow glow remained, not warm enough to see each other's breath. Wind slid in, the blade quivered 1 millimeter, metal's faint sound like a spoon striking bowl mouth far away. The old dog lifted its ears, dropped them. Fence wire groaned once, then stopped. At the saloon, somewhere, 3 knocks of a ring on wood, old rhythm, then silence. Jonas opened the door, sat on the step, ash dusted on his shoulder. His face tilted just enough to see starless sky. Night smell light as standing water. His hand rested on his knee. Forefinger flicked an ash grain from the plank crack, let it fall. Tilda stood in the doorway, leaned a shoulder against the frame, kept distance, eyes on the black yard gone cold. They heard a stray horse cry on the road, long, like someone calling without knowing whom. The sound passed through them, dropped into the ash, died. "Tomorrow, replace the wire," Jonas said, not looking at her. "Yes," Tilda answered. She did not step out. She did not retreat in. Her shadow lay on the floor like ink not yet dry. Inside, the upside blade swayed faintly by wind crossing two doors. Each sway, the dried blood line seemed to change shape, but not place. On the edge clung a faint strand, unclear if hair or thread from a rag. Dark, not enough to identify, enough to place another question atop the old one. Jonas came back in. He stood under the blade. He raised his hand as if to straighten it, then lowered. His finger stopped 1 inch from steel, ended in a gesture unfinished. He turned away, sat again at the table. The dented cup rim touched the callus on his thumb, as always. He did not drink. Tilda walked beneath the blade. She looked up, collar shifted 1 hair as the blade turned dark stain black split. Below, the brown paper covered the chipped wood corner, like a wound patched quick. He looked, neither accepted nor refused. He turned the chair, leaned back, eyes fixed on the blade like a man watching an exhibit with no claimant. No one said stay. No one said go. No one erased the faint black trace around the nail's head. Maybe Ezra's chalk. Maybe Tilda's ash. No one wiped the dried blood. Maybe human. Maybe skin grazed by careless steel. The upside blade remained like a question that could stand. Keep still. Wait. Wind slid through the house once more, made the blade tremble. Thin metal, sound against nail, like ice touching glass. That sound stayed in the wood's bone, in the fence wire, in the hearer's lungs. It carried them, night after night, from ash season to grass season. And each morning, as new dust coated steel, the old mark showed clearer. No one touched. Not yet. In the end, the razor still hung, upside down, blade half shut, dried blood, thin as thread. Inside the house, silence thick as soot. Outside, wind scraped the fence to a long note. No one said, "That is done." Jonas burned his own ground to keep the door. Tilda raised her collar higher, covered the round burn rings. Ezra brushed chalk from his hands, vanished into the saloon. Each left a mark, none enough to pardon, none enough to condemn whole. If it were you, would you take the blade down or leave it hanging? Keep it as proof or as curse? Does a man have the right to burn what he built to guard another? Does a survivor need truth spoken to be trusted? And the blood on the blade, whose blood? Does it shift what is right or wrong? Maybe there is no clean justice in this land. Only price to pay and secrets that can stand still. When the lamp dies, what remains is fence wires hum and a gaze fixed on a half-shut blade. The rest, each decides.